Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor Heroes vs Villains episode 6. That's right, we're back to talk about the top 5 talking points for this episode. But before we begin, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and put a like on this video. It helps immensely with getting this channel recognized in the YouTube algorithms, and it helps us grow. Thank you so much for everybody that has been subscribing recently to the channel. I really appreciate the love and support. Now let's get into it. Takeaway number 1, George and Simon has a massive power struggle for Jerry. Now, Jerry was voted out in the previous episode and was seen as someone that could be discarded of easily because he was injured by the Heroes tribe, and they say as much when they go to the beginning of this episode. None of them wanted to sacrifice Paige because Paige is a lot younger, she's got a capable body, and she's someone that they can rely on as a solid number in their alliance, and I do feel like a lot of people want to work with Paige at this point. Jerry, on the other hand, he's on the other side of this spectrum. He's the oldest guy out there, he's got an ankle injury, and they thought, listen, if we do lose him in the next couple of votes, no water off our back. But Jerry, you know, even though he gets to this new camp, at first he's very Heroes loyal, but the next morning Jerry does realize that the Heroes don't really see him as a part of their long-term game, so why should he stay loyal to them long-term in this game? So it's going to be interesting. Jerry may have a bigger role to play in the coming weeks when he does end up going back to that Heroes tribe, and potentially if there is ever a swap, which was discussed multiple times here in this episode. A really funny comment by JLP being made there. Well, did I say that there is a swap coming? But these guys have all played Survivor before. It's hard to get one over them. They know that the normal structure of Survivor means that a swap is imminent. So that is why they're making a lot of the decisions that they're making currently within the game. But Jerry comes to camp. He walks up into the villains tribe. He goes and touches Simon while he's sleeping, and Simon for a second is confused and dazed and thinks that it's Sam. It did get me wondering, did Simon want it to be Sam because he feels like Sam is someone he could work with, or is maybe someone that he spoke to prior to the game coming in, because he seemed quite excited when he said Sam. So I'm wondering about that. But George and Simon both want to talk to Jerry immediately. George wants Jerry to come and sleep close to where he is, and Simon says no, Jerry's sleeping in the middle, staying warm, being treated like the real king, while the king has got to sleep on the outside on the porch in this episode. But the next morning, we continue to see Jerry doing a really good job socially with the villains tribe, and I think Jerry being the oldest guy, obviously going in there, having a bit of an injury, and Jerry also playing down his own threat level by being the lovable old guy, he doesn't seem to pose a threat to anybody in this game. Simon wants to take George out. He's got bigger targets in mind, and then I think if George had it his way, he would love to have Simon out as well at this point in the game, but obviously that's not where they're going to go by the end of this episode. Now, Jerry, we do get a little bit of a why he's out there. Finally, one of the new players we're getting to know a little bit on a deeper level, and we see that he's got this family business where he charters a plane and takes people out on these trips, but because of the COVID period, obviously the tourism industry was hit very hard in Australia, and the business that he's got is nearly bankrupt, and this could save that business, a legacy business that he has been working in and has been in his family for a long time. So we know Jerry's got a very strong reason to be out there, and this is the reason why he's not giving up. A lesser man in Jerry's case would have given up, would have felt deflated, but this guy has got a real heart for this game, and I am fast becoming a Jerry stan on this channel. So well done to Jerry for playing it right, making friends on both sides here with Simon and George, so he could play the middle ground and decide which way he wants to go by the end of this episode. Now, takeaway number 2, we do get another showdown between George and Haley. George got one over her on the previous episode, and Haley does end up knocking down George's idol. But George, the ever opportunist that he is, take this opportunity to again strategize with Haley, and he asks, should I trust Jerry, who's just come over to my tribe? And Haley says yes, yes, yes. Now, at first glance, I thought Haley was throwing George off his game here, and that she was being hero strong to try and get Jerry as a number back on that tribe. But it does look like, you know, these two do have a friendship outside of the game, and they're going to trust each other's word up until a certain point, because they are the biggest two targets in this game. And Jerry also then confirming later on in the episode that he has got Shani and both Haley that he wants to work with, or who is in his corner. I think that there's Haley, Shani, George, and then Jerry and Shawnee and Liz alliance could become a thing if we do end up in the right tribe swap situation in the future, because obviously George is going to throw him a bone here, and he is going to try and work with Jerry because he trusts Haley so much. That trust might come back to haunt him at the end of the day, so at some point he's going to have to clip Haley's wings. He cannot take it to the end again, but I'm sure George is smart enough to know this himself. Now, takeaway number 3, they do get photos from home in this episode, and it's always a tearjerker for a lot of people when they do get to see loved ones from home. The one that stood out for me, obviously, was Nina talking about her family, Sandra, making a joke of it and minimizing the fact that her mother is a 2-times winner, and obviously it's something that she can't hide from. It is a threat level that she's bringing into this game, but I thought she dealt with it pretty well here. Haley got given an absolute hospital pass by the production team, where she had a photo of her and I believe her husband now, where they bought a house, and she said thank you Survivor, and again had to play it up a little bit because obviously everybody knows that she won the $500,000 last time she played, but again, production putting it out there, making people aware of it, is not necessarily a good thing for Haley's game. I don't know if she got to choose the photo, but I've got a feeling production might have had a little bit of a say of what photos get approved to go out there. The other person we do get to know on a deeper level here is Paige. Obviously, Paige, having been raised by her grandmother and losing her grandmother earlier in the year, in April last year, it's something that's quite fresh, and I thought it was really heartwarming to see how the tribe sort of got around her and motivated her to be out there in the first place. And this is one of the things I really love about Survivor. I obviously love the strategizing. I obviously love the physical competition that is out there and the backstabbing and all the good stuff that all of us superfans love about Survivor. But at the end of the day, these are all people out there going through a very real experience, that are struggling together, that are out in the cold together, and to see these bonds being forged out there is really heartwarming for me. And Paige is now a part of that Survivor family. I really felt for her in that moment as well, when she was struggling out there, and I can only imagine how tough it must be to do that. Now obviously there's been people, this is not a competition, but there's been people out there before that have lost people while being out there, Flick being a great example of that, obviously being back there this year as well. But it was interesting to see who they chose to share what information of in here, and I'm starting to form a picture in my mind of who the real A players are, because Australian Survivor, I do feel like sometimes are not the greatest when it comes to hiding who the potential winners are going to be. They've been trying to do a better job this year, I would say, but there are still a few people that stand out for me from this week. Now, moving on to number 4, Benjamin steps up in a massive way. Now, obviously, we got a little bit of a backstory from him as well, from that family photos, him and his partner having been high school sweethearts, having been together, I believe, for 20 years up until this point. So well done to Benjamin. That is a long time to be with someone. And obviously, if you find the right person, that's awesome. And it seems like he did find the right person at a very young age. Now, in this episode, we learn that his cousin is deaf and Paige's mom is deaf. So for the first time ever in a Survivor immunity challenge, we have them signaling via sign language what the words are in the puzzle that they need to solve at the end of this. And the villains nearly sneak this one out by being very villainous and copying and cheating off the heroes when it comes to the word. And I think it was a block or two away at the end for them to actually potentially win this immunity. But the heroes finally do pull one back here, and they do stop that momentum that the villains have been gaining over the last couple of episodes, sending them straight back to camp, which will lead into my 5th takeaway for this episode. So going into takeaway number 5, Sarah got outplayed. She got caught with her hands in the cookie jar. She was trying to play a bit of a middle game. Now, she's been very quiet throughout this whole season to date. The beauty queen sitting there just, trying not to bring too much attention to herself, which I think as a new player coming into the game would have been the correct strategy. But Simon puts out an olive branch to her, and he says, listen, I want you to potentially consider coming over to the dark side or the good side, whatever however you see it, if you're Team George or Team Simon in this scenario. And he says, we want to go and take out George. And in fact, he actually asks her, who do you want? And she says George before he even gives his answer, which is always the right way. If people are willing to give you more information than what you need to do, if they're willing to put a name out there, let them do it. And it's exactly how he handled this conversation. Now, obviously, one of the things here that stood out in this conversation to Simon was the fact that she was so willing to cut the head off the snake she's been playing with this whole season to date, because George has been working on Sarah, trying to bring her into that Spice Girls maybe alliance that he's got going on. And she is more than willing, because she's seen his previous season, to get rid of him. She knows he's a big threat, but the cutthroatness in which she is willing to do this, saying she would step on the head of the snake, I think it threw Simon a little bit for a loop, and maybe even made him consider, would she very easily turn on me down the road, and would I see it coming because she's so cunning at what she's doing in this scenario? So that was one of the interesting parts of this. And then obviously the other part of this was the fact that George thought he had her in the bag. He thought he had Sarah, but then Shani once again saved George's game here in a certain degree by letting him know with great observation skills that I don't think Sarah is as solid as you think, George, and that makes George go to backup plan number B. Now, George is definitely outworking everybody else in this tribe right now. He's building bridges, he's getting along with people across different alliances, and he has to play at this pace because he is the biggest target in the game. So he does go to Stevie, he has a conversation with Stevie, and he says, Stevie, this is what we want to do, we want to take out Sarah. And it makes Stevie really question which direction he's going to go. And now this could either be the thing that makes or breaks Stevie this season, because George is working so closely with Shani. I think that, him working with George potentially could be not the greatest thing for him, because it means he's now also locked in with that Shani alliance, unless George is kind of selling him, listen, we can take out Shani when the time is right. And that's the hook that he potentially used to bring Stevie in. I'm not too sure how much information was shared there, but I do feel like we missed a lot of the conversations, because suddenly at the vote, everybody turns on Sarah. You've got Simon, Geordie, everybody voting against her when they were so gung-ho on voting out George in the spot. So why did Simon change his vote? Was it because Stevie changed his vote? I don't get it. There's a missing bit of information there. Maybe it is still a little bit a case of Geordie looking out for George in the spot like he said he would. Or maybe it is a case of Simon trying to work still with Shani and Liz, even though they're potentially closer to George at this stage. At this stage, as we've seen the game unfold, Simon is taking L after L after L when it comes to his moves and taking control of this tribe. He's slowly but surely losing control of the tribe, and George is gaining more power. I also think that, with this episode, it really was a coming out episode for George. Even though Shani had behind the scenes told him about Sarah, George is the one that's seen doing all the strategizing. It's his plan according to the edit. So it makes me think that George is the front runner in this tribe right now, more so than Shani, unless we get a very powerful week from Shani going into week 3. Any case, that's my rant. That's my 5 takeaways here for this episode. I may do who I think is in the lead to win this season pretty soon as an additional little bit of content. So keep an eye on the channel, hit subscribe, hit like, do all those great stuff to be informed when I do drop some new content. But for now, that's it. See you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Bye.